You're sitting in a waiting room. The chair is uncomfortable. Your phone is dead. There's nothing to read, nothing to watch, nothing to do. And within about 90 seconds, something strange happens. You start to feel it, that restless, crawling, almost unbearable sensation creeping up the back of your skull. Boredom. It feels like a malfunction, like your brain has broken. But what if it hasn't? What if that feeling is one of the oldest, most important signals your species has ever evolved? Because here's the thing. Your ancestors felt this too. Not in waiting rooms, obviously, but around dying fires, in shallow caves, in the long, empty hours between hunts. And what they did with that feeling didn't just pass the time. It built civilization. Boredom is not a modern problem. It is not a product of smartphones or Netflix or the attention economy. Researchers have found evidence of boredom-driven behavior in the fossil record going back at least 40,000 years, possibly much further. The real question isn't why you get bored. The real question is why boredom exists at all, and what it was designed to make you do. Psychologist Sandy Mann at the University of Central Lancashire has spent years studying boredom as a functional state. Her findings are counterintuitive. Boredom, she argues, is not emptiness. It is the opposite. It is a signal from your brain that says, your current situation is not stimulating enough. Go find something better. It is a push, an evolutionary prod, a neurological nudge toward novelty, exploration, and creation. Think about what that means for your ancestors. Picture a group of early humans camped near a river. The hunt is over, the food is eaten, the immediate threats have passed. It is late afternoon, and there is nothing to do. And in that nothing, boredom arrives. For a modern person, boredom leads to doom scrolling. For a Paleolithic human, boredom led somewhere far more interesting. Archaeologists call it play behavior, and the evidence of it is everywhere. In caves across Europe and Indonesia, you find handprints stenciled onto stone walls. Not records of kills, not maps, not warnings, just hands. Someone, tens of thousands of years ago, pressed their palm against a rock, blew pigment around it, and stood back to look. Why? There was no survival benefit, no practical reason. The most convincing explanation is the simplest one. They were bored. And being bored, they made something. Anthropologist Ian Tattersall at the American Museum of Natural History has argued that the explosion of symbolic and creative behavior around 40,000 years ago was not triggered by a genetic mutation or a sudden leap in intelligence. It was triggered by something more ordinary. Surplus time. When early humans developed enough skill to secure food and safety more efficiently, they were left with hours they didn't know how to fill. Boredom became the engine of culture. Consider what was invented in those idle hours. Music. The oldest known musical instruments are bone flutes, found in southern Germany, dating back 40,000 years. They are made from vulture and mammoth bone, carefully shaped and drilled. These weren't made during a hunt. They weren't made during an emergency. They were made during downtime. Someone, sitting around with nothing pressing to do, picked up a bone and started carving. Not because they had to, because they were restless. Storytelling. Oral traditions didn't develop because ancient humans needed them to survive in any immediate sense. They developed because humans sitting around fires, with nothing else to fill the silence, started asking questions. Why does the sun move? Where did we come from? What happens after we die? Boredom created the space for those questions. And the answers, passed down through generations, became the foundation of every religion, every philosophy, every myth your civilization has ever built on. Art, tool refinement, jewelry, ritual. All of it traces back in one way or another to the same source. Long, empty, uncomfortable hours that demanded to be filled. Researcher John Eastwood at York University describes boredom as a state of wanting to engage with something meaningful, but being unable to do so in your current environment. That tension, he argues, is not a flaw in human wiring. It is a feature. It creates a pressure that can only be relieved through action, through novelty, through making, exploring, or connecting. And your ancient ancestors, without Netflix or social media or any other ready-made relief valve, had no choice but to let that pressure build until it pushed them towards something real. Here is what is strange about boredom, though. It is one of the only emotions that humans describe in a way that implies they are the problem. You don't say the world made you afraid. You say you got scared. You don't say the world made you angry. You say you got angry. But boredom? You say you are bored. As if the sensation is something that happens to you passively. As if you are its victim. But ancient humans did not experience it that way. They couldn't afford to. In an environment with no manufactured entertainment, boredom had only one exit: action. Create something, explore something, connect with someone, solve something. The discomfort was not the end of the experience. It was the beginning of it. Neuroscientist Mary Helen Imordino Yang at the University of Southern California has studied what happens to the brain during states of undirected rest, when there is no task at hand and no entertainment to consume. She found that this is when the default mode network activates. This is the part of your brain that handles self-reflection, empathy, imagination, and the processing of complex social and moral questions. In other words, the brain does not go quiet when you're bored. It goes deep. The same mental architecture that allowed ancient humans to imagine gods, tell stories, and understand the inner lives of other people activates most powerfully in exactly the moments when there is nothing else to do. Boredom, it turns out, is not the absence of thought. It is the incubation chamber for your most profound thinking. Which raises a question you probably don't want to answer. When was the last time you let yourself be bored? Not distracted, not entertained, not scrolling, watching, listening, or reading. Genuinely, uncomfortably, productively bored. When was the last time you sat in that restless space long enough to feel something new push its way through? Because here is what the fossil record tells you. Every great leap your species has ever made, every cave painting, every carved flute, every story about where the stars came from a moment that looked, from the outside, exactly like wasted time. Someone sitting in the dirt, doing nothing, until their brain refused to do nothing any longer. The ancient humans didn't kill boredom. They were powered by it. They didn't reach for something to fill the silence. They waited. And in the waiting, they became the species that makes things, the species that imagines things, the species that turns hollow bones into music and flat stone walls into galleries, and long, empty nights around a fire into the first chapters of every story ever told. So tonight, when that restless crawling feeling starts creeping up the back of your skull, you have a choice. You can kill it, or you can let it do what it was designed to do. Your ancestors didn't have a waiting room. They had the whole world. And they were bored enough to build something in it.